Morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Jim Constantopoulos. I'm a professor of geology here at Eastern New Mexico University, and I'm the curator and director of the Miles Mineral Museum, which is where we are today. Welcome to Eastern and the Miles Mineral Museum. Well, the Miles Mineral Museum started here on the Eastern campus in 1969, and this is Fred Miles and his wife Gladys. Fred owned a gas station in the Roswell area, and over the years collected an enormous collection that he actually had on display in his garage. In the late 60s, the university entered an agreement to purchase the collection from Mr. Miles. And in 1966, that's when that agreement happened. They signed it, and in 1969, the Miles Museum opened on the Eastern campus. We have been in this space since 1995, and we're really excited because in about 2 years, hopefully, we will be in a new space as this building gets replaced with a new building. So let's take a walk around and look at what we have. The way the museum is organized is actually by the way we classify minerals, which is based on chemistry. So most of the cabinets reflect that sort of way of displaying the samples. Over here, to start off with, we have what are called the silicate minerals. These are minerals that contain silicon, and many of these minerals are very common. Some are common gem minerals like garnet. Garnet's a great birthstone. Down here we have tourmaline, which is a very beautiful mineral. And these pink minerals down here, spodumene, that's also a gem mineral. And of course, this is aquamarine, which is my birthstone, the March birthstone. There's a really neat mineral down here, this really highly colored green mineral. It has a very complicated name. It's called Kuprosklodowskite, and that's actually named in honor of Marie Curie. In this cabinet, we continue with the silicates, and up at the top we have mica minerals, and I'm sure many of you have seen a lot of these mica minerals like muscovite and biotite and so forth. Then down here we have agates, which of course many people collect and polish into stones for jewelry. And over on the far end over here, we have tiger's eye. That's a big chunk of tiger's eye. And again, that's a common mineral that people will facet or polish into jewelry. In this display here, we have Pecos River diamonds. This is the only place in the world where these types of minerals occur. It's actually a quartz crystal, and they occur along the Pecos River. And New Mexico is famous for those. Kind of a similar mineral are Herkimer diamonds. These are from New York, from upstate New York. And they are also quartz crystals, and they're water clear. In the bottom here, you see the big amethyst. And here's some opal. It's not very gemmy, but still, opal's a real common mineral that's used in jewelry. Over here on the top shelf, we have the dreaded asbestos minerals. Over here at the first couple of minerals here, this is serpentine asbestos, and that's probably the most widely used asbestos mineral. And this blue one here, this is crocidolite. That is the most dreaded of all minerals. It's probably the most dangerous mineral on the planet. If you've seen those TV commercials from the lawyers advertising, if you've caught mesothelioma, that's the mineral that causes mesothelioma. These are feldspars in this shelf here, and feldspars are the most common mineral in the Earth's crust. And some of them are gemmy varieties, like the amazonite, the very first one there, beautiful green. And then moonstone is also a gemstone. In the next shelf, we have zeolites, and zeolites are important industrial minerals. They help soften water, they're used in laundry detergent, they're used in animal feed, in lots of different applications. On the next shelf, we have obsidian and related rocks. Most people think that obsidian is black, but obsidian does come in a variety of colors. On the bottom shelf, we have the weird rocks, like this sand spike over here. Those only occurred in one place in the entire world, and they're no longer available, and we're very happy to have a sample of it. And then in the back is something called flexible sandstone. That rock actually bends. In this cabinet, we have native elements and minerals that contain sulfur. Now, what's a native element? These are minerals that are composed of a single mineral and nothing else. For example, native gold. In fact, most gold that occurs is native gold, uncombined with anything else. And of course, we have native copper, native sulfur, and then native carbon, like graphite and diamond. Now, I think most people know that graphite and diamond are both made of carbon, but they are so completely different. Here's what graphite looks like. That's the crystal structure of graphite. And of course, graphite you use in pencils for writing. So when you write, you're actually tearing off sheets of carbon atoms. This is the structure of diamond. And the nature of this structure is such that all of the bonds are of equal strength, and they're all very, very, very tough covalent bonds. And that's what gives the diamond its incredible strength. The rest of the cabinet contains a lot of very important ore minerals. Those are minerals that we mine for metals, like zinc and copper and antimony and stuff like that. Then the most common of the sulfide minerals is pyrite. We have this beautiful sample from Spain. And then these cubes here makes perfect cubes. This cabinet contains oxides and hydroxides. So this is one or more metals combined with oxygen or hydroxide, which is an OH. And up here at the top of the shelf, we have hematite, which is the most important iron mineral. That's what we mine to make steel. Other minerals up here, stuff like pyrolusite, which is a manganese mineral. Again, these are all really important industrial minerals that we use for making various products today. There's some other iron minerals over here, like goethite, this very unusual mineral. Some of these become highly colored, like crocoite. It's a lead and chromium mineral that has a really neat orange color, or erythrite, which is a cobalt mineral. And of course, everybody in New Mexico should know turquoise. This is a copper phosphate mineral. New Mexico is very famous for uranium minerals, and uranium minerals often are highly colored. This is carnotite, and it's got that bright lemon yellow color. In this cabinet, we have sulfate minerals, and sulfate minerals contain sulfur and oxygen. And they're pretty common, especially here in New Mexico. And the bottom three shelves are all examples of gypsum and barite, which are the two most important minerals that are in that group. And here we see a giant gypsum crystal. This is probably from the Cave of Swords in Mexico. One of the problems I've had as a curator with the Miles collection is a lot of the material did not have any archive information, so I don't know where they came from. But to get a crystal that big, it probably had to come from the Cave of Swords. Now, where else do you see gypsum in New Mexico? Well, white sands. White sands is a gypsum dune field. And so that stuff starts out as gypsum crystals that get windblown and deposited in the playa lakes, and then eventually in white sands. This cabinet is entirely devoted to calcite. Calcite is probably the #1 mineral in terms of the variety of different forms and shapes it takes on. Most commonly, calcite is what we call a rhombohedron, which is kind of like a square that's been deformed. The other common form is what we call a dog-tooth spar, like this huge calcite crystal down here. So calcite, another very, very common mineral that we find today in the Earth's crust. These are carbonate minerals over here. Carbonates contain one or more metals plus CO3, the carbonate group, and includes some of the really beautiful minerals like azurite, it's this beautiful blue color, and malachite, which is green. And rhodochrosite, which is pink. So the copper gives azurite and malachite, the blue and the green color, and the manganese gives rhodochrosite, the pink color. Then down here you see a big aragonite sample from a cave somewhere, I don't know where. So when you go to Carlsbad Caverns or places like that, you see aragonite stalactites and stalagmites. This cabinet here is devoted to resources. You know, everything that you use, everything that you own starts out somewhere as either a mineral mined from the ground or a rock or something that's grown by a farmer. So we are vitally dependent on a really large array of different materials for the stuff that we use every day. Probably the first earth materials, geological materials to be used were, of course, rocks for making spear points and arrowheads and stuff like that. Of course, aluminum starts out as the mineral bauxite. One of the most widely used minerals are the clay minerals. Now, clay minerals are actually a large, complex group of minerals, and we use them for making ceramics. If you have a cat, you're buying clay for kitty litter. It's used in cosmetics. Even in the foods that we eat, we consume minerals. Like, here's powdered coffee creamer. And what they will add to materials like that is ground up feldspar to help it flow out of the jar into your coffee. I have a special display over here in the corner on the geology of Twinkies. And yeah, that Twinkie there is about 3.5 years old and still looks fresh as the day it came out of the box. We use a lot of different minerals to make foods, and it's kind of a surprise to most people, but you know, baking soda, baking powder, the iron in enriched flour, all of this stuff starts out as minerals from the ground. Well, even though we call this the Miles Mineral Museum, every so often we have donations from other people. And up at the top here, we see a very small portion of the Margaret Gross collection. Mrs. Gross was a mineralogist who worked for one of the mining companies in California, and she collected a huge array of different minerals from all around the world. And we're very fortunate to have received this collection. In the next shelf, we have varieties of halite. You know halite as salt, table salt. And these are borax minerals down here. Borax minerals are really important. Borax is what gives Pyrex glass its unique properties. We use it in water softening and detergents. You can buy 20 Mule Team borax at the grocery store to add to your laundry. In the next two shelves here, we have my favorite mineral, fluorite. Fluorite is a calcium and fluorine mineral and forms beautiful, beautiful cubes and octahedrons. You can see the little octahedrons here on the shelf in the little caliper. That's an 8-sided sort of pyramid type of shape. This is a special cabinet for us here. This is New Mexico minerals and meteorites. So most of the cabinet is devoted to unique New Mexico minerals. Like these blue minerals up here on the top shelf. This is halite, salt, that's been colored blue by radioactive activity. And it's extremely rare and occurs down in the potash mines in the Carlsbad area. This little sample here in the front, this is trinitite. So this is quartz sand that was fused by the atomic bomb that was tested in New Mexico. In the next shelf, we have some more unique New Mexico mineral samples. The smithsonite, this beautiful blue-green samples from the Kelly mine in Socorro. The very best samples of smithsonite in the entire world come from the Kelly mine in Socorro. We have some native gold on calcite. This is from the San Pedro mine in Santa Fe County. And in the back, you notice this one sample, this anhydrite and calcite from the Castile Formation. It looks like some sort of tapestry, and that's very unique and beautiful. On the bottom shelf here, we have a very unique sample that was donated to the museum by Jeffrey and Michelle Robertson, some friends and former students here at Eastern. And it's a very unique sample with hematite clusters growing on limestone. It looks like bugs. Took me a while to figure out what was going on with that sample. This is a huge sample of magnetite, and that's from Lincoln County. There used to be a magnetite mine there, an iron mine, and they would ship that iron ore off to be turned into iron and steel. We have this very unique hubcap tire cover encrusted with salt. Don't know where exactly that is from, but it's pretty unusual. And then here we have a small collection of meteorites, including the very, very famous Portales Valley meteorite that landed right outside Portales in 1998. And there was a big flurry of activity looking for pieces of that meteorite. And it turns out it was a pretty unique meteorite and was named because it fell here in Portales Valley. This is not a very showy sample, but it's a sample called clinoptilite. It's a zeolite, and it's from down southwest New Mexico. And New Mexico is the #1 producer of zeolites in the country. And zeolites, again, are very important for water softening, for detergents, for animal feed, and lots of applications like that. On the top shelf here, we have the Von McDougall collection. This was another donated sample collection. Mr. McDougall's son went to school here. His grandson went to school here. And when Mr. McDougall passed away, he wanted his collection donated to Eastern. Again, some pretty unique samples. The next two shelves, we have some fossils. Fossils aren't really a big emphasis here at the museum, but we have on display some really neat samples, some beautiful trilobites, some fish samples. These are from Wyoming. This is a very famous locale in Wyoming where the fish were preserved in a very, very fine-grained sediment. On the next shelf, we have some stuff that's also really unique. This first sample in the corner there, Glossopteris. This is a fern tree, and what makes that sample so special is that between 200 and 300 million years ago, all of the southern continents had come together into one supercontinent called Gondwana. So you had South America, Africa, Antarctica, and Australia. And that fern fossil is distributed across all of those continents. And that was one of the key features in unraveling the mystery of plate tectonics. Kind of a fun sample there in the back. Coprolites. If you have a dog, you may recognize something like that. That's fossil dinosaur poop. And then we have some very beautiful petrified wood down here in the bottom. These are fluorescent minerals here, and this is one of the fun displays. People love seeing this stuff here. These are fluorescent minerals, so there's two ultraviolet lights up at the top, and these minerals contain stuff called activators, and they get excited under the UV light and absorb the ultraviolet energy, and then they release the energy in the form of visible light. Of course, this part of New Mexico is known for mammoths and prehistoric folks that hunted the mammoths. This is just a fragment of a mammoth bone. You can see the ball here, like the ball and socket joint. And this was so big that the part that would be the knee had to be housed down here. Now this is what a mammoth tooth looks like. These were large plant-eating animals, and so they had big flat teeth for grinding up lots of plant material. And here we see a portion of a tusk. So in terms of perspective, if you look at this illustration here, you can see how big the mammoth were compared to the modern day elephant. So they were pretty special. This was found in the Pecos River. It was sticking out. Some fishermen had hooked it, and then they contacted the university to come and excavate it. So we're very fortunate to have this specimen here. And it's solid. It weighs a lot. It's basically solid rock now. So that's pretty much the Miles Mineral Museum. We can't wait until this pandemic is over so folks can come visit us again. We normally have hundreds and hundreds of students coming through the museum, and we can't wait to welcome you back. And if you're interested in learning more about this stuff, we also have a great degree in environmental science here at Eastern. where you can come study with me and learn all about geology of New Mexico and environmental topics, from environmental law to various topics in geochemistry and whatnot. It's a very nice comprehensive program, and if you'd like information, you feel free to contact me. Thank you and have a great day.